But hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest Idaho Freedom Foundation event, How Parents Can Take Back Idaho Classrooms. I'm Anna Miller, the Education Policy Director here at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. If you have any questions throughout this discussion, please put them in the chat, and we will save them at the end of the discussion to address some of your questions if we have enough time. So the need for this webinar was prompted by a group of parents in Emmett School District here in Idaho that came together to petition their school district to allow them to create independent classroom teaching the Hillsdale 1776 curriculum. Parents were able to choose the Hillsdale curriculum because of a new law. It's known as Innovation Classrooms, and it gives parents a bit more autonomy and choice in directing their child's education. And the desire for parents to teach the 1776 curriculum and to want their schools to teach it is really very fitting, given the current descent of civics education across the country and here in Idaho. So I'll just give you an example. There was a recent survey on Holocaust knowledge, and it revealed that 59% of high school graduates in Idaho do not know that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. Another 32% cannot name a single concentration camp, and an additional 63% cannot name a Holocaust survivor. And as it turns out, history is not the only subject that is being taught poorly in Idaho schools. More and more classroom time is being diverted away from academic instruction and toward things like activism, other kinds of political manipulation through programs and various education fads like action civics and critical race theory and social emotional learning. And the increase of this really politically charged content in schools, combined with COVID-19 school closures and mandates, has led to many parents exiting the school system and beginning to take advantage of every alternative education option available to them. So, for example, homeschooling in Idaho has risen by almost 29% in the last year, and micro schools are becoming increasingly popular here. So as more and more parents begin to assert their right to educate their children according to their own unique needs, parents are wondering what curriculum resources and alternative school models are available to them. So that is the question that we're going to be addressing in tonight's discussion. Tonight, we are very lucky to be joined by Dr. Kathleen O'Toole. She is the Assistant Provost for K-12 Education at Hillsdale College. In this role, she oversees the Barney Charter School Initiative, Hillsdale Academy, and the college's outreach in the K-12 classical education world. We're also joined by Stephen Lambert. He's the founding principal of Treasure Valley Classical Academy, which is an affiliate school of the Hillsdale College Barney School Charter School Initiative. And finally, we're lucky to be joined by Senator Stephen Thayn, who is an Idaho Senator representing District 8 and Vice Chairman of the Senate Education Committee. So thank you all so much for being here today. The first question I have for our speakers is that we know the state of public education is dismal across the country and in Idaho. And I want to know, how did we get here? Why do you think that public education has devolved to this state? So I'll direct this question first to Dr. O'Toole, and then second to Principal Lambert, and then turning to Senator Thayn.
Well, Anna, thanks so much for having me here. I'm delighted to be joined by all of you. And thank you, Senator, and concerned parents for all of the great work you're doing there in Idaho. It's encouraging to see citizens standing up and fighting for what's right when it comes to the education of our students. The question, how did we get here? The answer is a long answer, I think. So let me just highlight a couple of things that I think are at play here. Number one, we have forgotten in general in public schools in this country that parents are in fact the primary educators of their children. I'm a new mom. I have an 11-month-old, and I'm also a former school principal. And one thing that I noticed when I was running my school is parents were very quick to trust me and the teachers that I had hired with massive decisions regarding their children's education. And they were very surprised when I said, in fact, you are the primary educators of your student. Your child is here because you have chosen to put your child in this school. And our job as the school is to give an account of what we are going to do with your child all day, every day. The second thing I think that's at play here is massive centralization Education is particularly damaged when we centralize education, because of course the people who know the students and love the students are the ones who should be entrusted with that student's education. And any effort that we make to make fundamental decisions about those children happen at a high level, especially a national level, are not going to take account of the needs of those specific kids. And then finally, I think we've forgotten about the role of the teacher. Teaching has not been regarded over the last several generations as an honorable profession. And teachers are not well thought of in general. Some of them are, of course, but I think generally speaking, the best and the brightest are not seeking to go into teaching. And that means that what's happening in the average classroom is not up to par. So those are a few thoughts on how we've gotten where we've gotten, and I'm sure Mr. Lambert and the senator will have thoughts too.
Principal Lambert, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
How about, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Mute button. Thanks for inviting me to this forum. I appreciate it. And yes, I have a couple of thoughts on how we got to where we are today. This is particularly acutely felt by me. I'm the son of immigrants that came to this country literally with pennies to rub together and immigrated through Ellis Island. And so I have a deeper appreciation, I think, on a personal level for the American experiment. You know, in the run-up to the Constitutional Convention, the public dialogue, the written dialogue, contains the mention of public virtue and private virtue over 6,000 times, according to a recent account. And the founders understood that in order for us to perpetuate our republic, we would need to have citizens of virtue and knowledge. I'm paraphrasing Madison out of Federalist 55. And K-12 schools, whatever form they were in, used to have a deeper appreciation for their civic duty. I was recently listening to a presentation where the speaker said that the way you build citizens is a three-legged stool: strong families, strong schools, and strong churches or other civic institutions like them. And if you think of the state of our families, they're struggling, our schools have lost their way, and our churches are no longer the moral conscience of our society. So is it any wonder that the state of our civicness looks the way it does? I think that we have forgotten what it means to pursue our first love, our primary mission, and that is to fashion citizens that are ready to be stewards of this experiment with liberty that we've been bequeathed. Instead, we've created factories that make career and job and money the primary objective. Not that those are necessarily bad things, but there's a higher calling. And I think this touches back to what Dr. O'Toole said. We no longer put our teachers on a pedestal. We no longer put our schools on a pedestal.
These are the libertarians.
We've forgotten the connection to the deeper civic duty of what we need to do in our schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn to Senator Thayn, the chairman of Senate Ed. Senator Thayn, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, a couple of things. They're fairly short. I appreciate being on this call, Anna. First of all, public education, as we now know it, was first established in the 1850s in Massachusetts by Horace Mann and his Unitarian friends. And they made a calculated move to take the responsibility away from parents for the curriculum. And so that is basically the root problem that's led to the centralization of, over the last 170 years, where we have Common Core and we have all these things happening. All the corruption of public education or its devolvement, as you ask, has come from the top down, not from parents. And it's because parents were their responsibility was taken away, and we have to regain it. I really like what Mr. Lambert said about public virtue, civic virtue. It's a prerequisite to freedom. And I written a paper comparing civic virtue with elitist domination. You can go to my website and read that if you want, stephenthane.com. And
Okay, please on.
there are two sources of civic virtue. One of them is religious and the other is understanding natural law, which comes from Cicero. So thank you for the question.
Thank you all for your thoughtful responses. So this question is directed for Dr. O'Toole and Principal Lambert specifically. So Hillsdale charter schools represent an alternative to public district schools. And we have one here in Idaho, and there's another one that's trying to start up in North Idaho. And Hillsdale charter schools do teach something known as classical education. Can you explain what is classical education and why you think families should be in favor of classical education? We'll go to Principal Lambert first.
In essence, classical education is the soul or character and the mind or intellect. The best way for me to encapsulate it is to state to you our mission. Our mission is to train the minds and improve the hearts of our students through a classical, content-rich curriculum that emphasizes virtuous living, traditional learning, and civic responsibility. I think we make a fundamental assumption about human nature. Plato in the Republic concluded that even a just man will do unjust things given the right circumstances. So if you try to build a civil society out of people that are not related by blood, family, and tribe, as the ancient Greeks did, then, and even if the best of people are inclined to do bad things in the right circumstances, well, then you have to do something about it. It's essential. And his most famous pupil, Aristotle, said that it takes a lifetime of hard work to become a person of good habits. So besides teaching a rich curriculum that is provided to us and under guidance from Hillsdale College, from whom we get terrific stewardship on how to do that well and how to cultivate the pedagogy and how to help find great teachers and make them really good. In addition to that, we have this challenge of showing these young boys and girls how to become good men and women, how to become, as the ancients said, great souled human beings. It's a high and noble aspiration. Classical education sees our entire humanity. It doesn't just attempt to put widgets of information into students' brains so that they can spit them out and go out and make a bunch of money. We like to think that we are going to graduate philosopher plumbers, or as Jefferson was wont to say, farmers that read Homer, citizens that understand what it means to be a human being, that have studied the great ideas and minds that have gone before them, that have had people habituate virtue in them. Every morning, I spend the first half hour of the day with the students that I affectionately call the littles, K through 2, and I read to them out of Bill Bennett's Book of Virtues, and I asked them this morning, why do we read fairy tales and fables? And the little kindergartners, they raise their hand and they say, so we can learn lessons. What kinds of lessons? The kind of lessons that teach us to be good people. And Dr. Condra, our assistant principal, spends time with 3rd through 6th grade. We have to soak them in this their entire time that they're in school, so that we give them a chance to understand how to live well. And so a classical education is not just the study of good books. It is the development of human character and the aspiration of building good human beings. And then I would add one more thing, and it's really critical. We're not just a classical school. We're an American classical school. So we have an obligation to perpetuate our republic. I just want to say this quickly. David McCullough, the American historian, favorite of mine, has a short essay where he says that during the War for Independence, about 1/3 of the people were sitting on the sidelines in favor of the crown. About 1/3 of the people were sitting on the fence waiting to see which side was going to win. about a third of the people were patriots. And we built our republic on the backs of those patriots. So for all of us that think that it's going to take a majority to perpetuate, if we can just plant the seeds for that third, if we can maintain that third, in McCullough's words, then we can see ourselves through this tough time. My job is to plant the seeds of that 1/3.
Thank you. Dr. O'Toole, do you have anything you would like to add?
Yes, Steve, that was beautiful. You guys can tell what a great school leader he is, can't you? He's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly right. Classical education is a well-rounded education. It pays attention not only to the knowledge that you receive in school, but also who you are going to become because of your time in school. Everyone on this call probably remembers going to grade school. You probably remember thinking that the bigger kids were the ones to emulate. In other words, by going to a school, your parents are putting you in a situation, in a community of people who, for better or worse, are going to be your examples. In a classical school, we pay attention to the moral education that you are definitely going to receive because you are a young person. And we think we've got to get the content of that moral education exactly right. Classical education, just in a sort of quick way of thinking about it, it's the education that most Americans in this country received a couple of generations ago. My grandparents were not fancy people. They lived in rural Arkansas. And when they were in grade school, they studied the great books. They read Shakespeare. They learned Latin, even though they were just sort of rural average people who were not going to be college professors. They were going to be, school teachers, or, my grandma just stayed at home and took care of the kids. But the thought was, as a human being, you deserve the opportunity and need the opportunity to study and read the very best of what Western civilization has produced, because that will form your soul and help you turn into the human being that you ought to be. Today, I think we have narrowed the focus of education. And instead of looking at these little children like human souls that need formation by beautiful and worthy things, we're thinking of them as future producers in society. And so we think of them mostly in terms of the career that they're going to have. And then we try to tailor their education to what we think their career is going to be. The point that Steve made is we want these kids to be philosophic plumbers. In other words, it is worth knowing the very best of what human civilization has produced, even if you're not using it in your job. It's just delightful to know, and it helps shape your humanity. So it's a well-rounded education. It's for everyone. It is not narrowing, and it is doable by every American child.
Thank you, Dr. O'Toole. You both gave very beautiful answers, I have to say. It's making me personally excited about classical education and the possibility of using that for my children someday. So now I'm going to turn to Senator Thayn. Senator Thayn, you've done a lot of work, not just to get the Innovation Classrooms bill through the legislature, but also working with parents in Emmett School District to help them mobilize and to start one of these independent classrooms with the Hillsdale 1776 curriculum. Can you tell me about your work on that and what that process was like?
I need to unmute myself, yes. No, I'd be happy to, Anna. So I began, Representative Horman and I began this process well before the last legislative session. And it was before the public became quite aware of, critical race theory. The idea was to give parents a greater voice in the curriculum. We've had Common Core, we've had math we don't like, but there's just lots of things. And it really started, the thought started probably 10 years ago in Sweet, which is a small school in Jim County. They wanted a different math curriculum. The superintendent would let them have it. The school board was busy about other things. They could have given it to them. They wouldn't let them. And so several of the parents left the school system. And I thought, well, what could we do about that? And so we came up with the Innovative Classroom bill in the legislature, got it passed and signed by the governor. probably more important to you that are listening on the call is what did we do in Gem County? So it really started at a graduation party at one of our graduating seniors. And I asked a few parents if they'd like a better government curriculum. And we have a fairly liberal government teacher, maybe two of them. I don't know the one as well, but and they said yes. So I said, well,
You got muted again, Senator Thayn. We just missed the last sentence.
So they said yes, they'd like to strengthen the American government class. And I pointed out that Hillsdale was coming up with a government class designed for public school students. So what the bill allows is for a group of parents to get together and petition the school board. So we got signatures of parents representing about 75 kids so far. And we went to the school board in, I think it was June, and told them what we wanted to do. We presented the petition saying we wanted to strengthen the curriculum in certain ways. And then in August, school board made a motion to put it through the curriculum adoption process. So what we're doing right now is we're shepherding that through their curriculum adoption process with the idea that we will have a Hillsdale created government class next fall in the Emmett School District.
That's incredible, and we really appreciate your work on that. And if anyone wants to learn about innovation classrooms, I would encourage you to contact Senator Thayn or contact us. We've written a little bit about it, and that is just one more education alternative that parents can choose for their children if they would like to stay in their district school but form an independent classroom for their kids. So one thing I would like to know more about, and I'm sure our audience would like to know more about, is specifically the Hillsdale 1776 curriculum. So what is unique about it, and why should parents and teachers be excited about it? Dr. O'Toole, I'll go to you first for this question.
Okay, great. Thanks for asking. So Hillsdale College for 30 years has worked in K through 12 education. We have a private school here on campus. And for the last 10 plus years, we've been advising classical charter schools like Mr. Lambert's across the country. We advise them by providing curriculum, a K through 12 scope and sequence that ensures that the students in the school receive a coherent educational experience over the course of their entire K through 12 years. And if you think about that, that in and of itself is a very rare thing. I don't know about you, but when I was in school, my sixth grade teacher and my ninth grade teacher didn't know each other. I went to two different schools, and there was no mechanism in place to ensure that what I had learned in sixth grade was building up to what I was going to learn in ninth grade. So Hillsdale schools are K through 12, and they have this coherent curriculum that ensures that students who graduate have, been fully educated. Part of that curriculum is the teaching of American history, which we take very seriously from the very earliest grades. And then we teach government and civics all throughout the curriculum as well, with a special government course in high school. Now, seeing last year the outright confusion and wrong-headedness about how students should be taught American history in this country, we thought, well, we have this curriculum. It's excellent. It's been used in schools for over a decade, and we know the teachers who are using it. Let's take that curriculum and make it available to any American teacher or parent or student or legislator that wants it. And so that's exactly what we did. We pulled out all of the American history and civics and government from the curriculum. We fleshed it out into full lesson plans written by teachers in the field who are actually teaching students. And then we made it available at k12.hillsdale.edu for free download for anyone who wants to know what is possible and what responsible teaching of American history looks like. If you download this curriculum, what you will find is not editorials written in the last several years. You will find primary source documents written by Thomas Jefferson, written by John Adams, and Alexander Hamilton. You will find the Constitution itself, lessons on what the Constitution says and how it ought to be taught to students. There are timelines, there are key terms, there are sample tests and quizzes, there are questions to keep in mind as the teacher, but as you're preparing the lesson and then to discuss with the students. This is a comprehensive and responsible way to teach American history based on the mountains of evidence about what happened in America before our time. So we hope that it will be widely used. It will always be free, and it will always be true because the evidence is there. We're not making it up ourselves. We're just giving people the tools to study it responsibly themselves.
Thank you, Dr. O'Toole. Principal Lambert, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
I think that was well described. Imagine if you take that kind of support and apply it across all the other core subjects: mathematics, literature, history, K through 12, Latin. If you do, sorry?
Fine arts.
Fine arts. If you do that, then you get the 1776 curriculum on steroids. That's the education you get at Treasure Valley Classical Academy and every other BCSI affiliated school across the country. Combine that kind of curriculum with pedagogical training every summer at Hillsdale. We send our entire faculty to Hillsdale every summer. All the school has to do is pay the travel there. Hillsdale covers room and board, everything else, the materials that are necessary. And our faculty gets to interact with teaching faculty from these schools across the country. BCSI and the Hillsdale K-12 team come visit us once a semester. They do classroom visits to ensure that we maintain fidelity with the curriculum. It's fantastic. So the 1776 curriculum, we teach it at our school, soup to nuts, beginning to end, plus all of the other core subjects in the same kind of way.
Thank you. Senator Thayn, do you have anything that you would like to add? I also know that you have seen some opposition to the 1776 curriculum in some school districts. Maybe you would want to speak to that as well.
Yes, thank you, Anna. So I've been reading The Land of Hope, which is the textbook for American history. It's very positive. It gives a nice narrative of, starting about the time of Marco Polo and the Enlightenment and the Protestant Reformation, how all that fits in and has political ramifications for this establishment of America, comparing the Spanish and the French with the English system. It's a great book. I'm really enjoying it. We did get some, at our first meeting, one of the government teachers said that he thought we had a separation of church and state issue here, meaning that because Hillsdale was Christian and conservative. And I don't know which was worse for him, the conservative or Christian. But if you analyze that a little bit, the founding fathers were really very inclusive. They brought people of all sorts of different religions and say we can live together under certain rules, but we're going to allow everyone to have freedom of speech. The idea that you can exclude someone from schools or from the public square because of their identity is the heart of what Marx did and Lenin did and Hitler. It's also the heart of critical race theory, where you divide people into groups based upon race or in this case, Hillsdale is supposedly tainted in his thinking because of who they are, not what they did or what they wrote. So I responded to that. There is some opposition, mostly from the government teachers right now. And that's to be expected because we're doing something. We're empowering parents to choose a different curriculum and take it out of the hands of the State Department of Ed. We're taking it out of the federal government. And we're saying, parents, you can do this. So I imagine it is unsettling for some parents to have, or for some teachers to have parents come forward and say, we think this is a great curriculum. I think they feel like they're losing their authority. But personally, I think they need to get used to it, and parents need to get used to the idea that they really are in charge, like Dr. O'Toole said.
Thank you, Senator Thayn. Principal Lambert, when Senator Thayn mentioned the issues regarding separation of church and state, I saw you shake your head a little bit. I'm sure that you have heard some of these arguments before. Is there anything that you would like to add specifically in regards to that type of objection to classical curriculum like the 1776 curriculum?
Certainly. This is something that we tangle with from time to time, but the way I like to approach this subject is to say that our goal is to rigorously examine things in order to uncover what the Greeks called episteme, or the knowing of something, knowledge, truth. There's a reason why Socrates had this habit of asking why again and again and again to his students, and it was in order to learn, to uncover, to examine, to wonder. And the end result of that was to provide truth to those appointed to govern so they could make wise and just decisions. Well, we have forgotten the ethos of rigorous examination and debate that we've inherited in the Western tradition. And as such, we've canceled each other, we've put on blinders, we've refused to examine all perspectives. We are the antithesis of that. We encourage the free and open examination of all ideas. And included in that often is the topic of metaphysics. And that is perfectly fine. It's like the philosopher Francis Schaeffer once said, the human experience is characterized, could be compared to a two-story house. The first story is that which is the rational, the empirical, that which we know we can prove with science. The upper story is the metaphysical, it's everything else. And to deny that existence is to deny the sum total of the human experience. So, yes, we do not proselytize. We cannot do that. And besides, that should be left up to parents. I tell families of faith that are at our school that we are their best partner, because we will never get in the way of their prerogatives, and we will never expose our children to the toxic components in a popular culture that would upset families of faith. I could go on this subject, but I think I'll stop there.
Well, thank you, Principal Lambert. Your school is certainly very lucky to have you. So innovation classrooms is one option where parents can establish an independent classroom and use whatever curriculum they want. We also have homeschooling in Idaho. Homeschooling is really popular in Idaho. We also have charter schools, and we also have the rise of micro schools now. So parents do have varying options. One question I know a lot of parents have is, what other types of classical curriculum, aside from civics like the 1776 curriculum, what other types of classical curriculum are available for parents or teachers to use? So I'll direct this question first to Dr. O'Toole.
Great. Well, as Mr. Lambert said, classical education is not just about studying history. Right now, that's the topic at hand. That's the topic where our country needs the most help. But a well-organized, a well put together classical school is going to do an excellent job teaching skills, knowledge, and virtue. So skills, what are the things, what are the abilities or the skills that a student needs to develop in order to be a student? You have to learn to read. You have to learn to do mathematics, calculate in your head. You have to learn to study. You have to learn to read carefully, not just do the mechanics of reading, but understand, pay attention to something that's complex. You have to be able to make an argument. You have to be able to listen to an argument. A classical school that is well put together will be able to account for how a student learns these things. My favorite book on that topic is called Study is Hard Work by William Armstrong. And it begins with a chapter on how to listen, and then it's got chapters on how to outline and all of those other things. So I think the development of skills is a huge part of classical education. Students who go to a classical school are well-rounded. We're not just history and literature and Latin people. We're also math and science people and fine arts people and PE people. We understand that kids need to have, excellent PE class throughout their educations, because we're not just developing the mind, we're developing the body as well. So any classical education worth its weight will be able to account for why we learn these things. I think Mr. Lambert should tell you about what they do with literacy and numeracy, and introducing students to the concept of going to school and how to be effective at it when he talks. But let me just close by saying that for parents who are interested in learning about classical education, Hillsdale College has a suite of resources available at k12athome.hillsdale.edu. This is a website that we created in the middle of the pandemic for parents who suddenly were homeschooling their kids. And we've developed a lot of things for parents of children going to classical schools as well. Often parents haven't received a classical education themselves, and they're wondering, how do I help my child who's going to this classical school? So that website, k12athome.hillsdale.edu, I'll put it in the chat, is a great place to go to learn about curriculum, learn about what's out there, and how do you judge the other elements of a classical curriculum other than just civics.
Thank you. Principal Lambert, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I'm gonna focus on two areas. You mentioned charter school. I often find that there's some confusion about what a charter school is. So I just like to let parents know that charter schools are tuition-free public education. And a charter school comes about because a board gets created with a particular educational focus. In our case, a group of citizens here in Fruitland got together and they decided that they wanted an American classical charter school in their community. They were advocates for school choice, and they went to work, and they eventually wound up collaborating with Hillsdale College to bring this about, and then eventually invited me to come out and lead the effort. In some ways, it's challenging, the most challenging way to do it, because in a perfect world, I would like to have a huge endowment like Hillsdale, so that I could give out unlimited scholarships to all the students that would want to come to my school and never have to ever answer to the state. That would be perfect. But alas, we don't live in a fairyland. And so we are publicly funded. I just want to be clear about that. We are publicly funded, but we have our own curriculum and our own charter that we obtain from the Public Charter School Commission. And that's our contract. And our contract says certain things. It says that we have to live up to what we said we would do, which is to have an American classical school using Hillsdale's curriculum. And it says that we have to meet our enrollment goals. Well, we're definitely meeting our enrollment goals. We're over enrolled. We have a 98.5% student return rate and 99% faculty return rate, and a big wait list. And then it says that we can't have financial issues. We don't. We just got another clean audit with no findings. It says that we have to outperform the public schools around us in things like the ISAT and the IRI. And that's happening because this is a really good curriculum and we hire really good teachers. So this is one way to do it. It's a way that parents can have the best educational partner for free for their children in a public setting. I do want to address the thing that Dr. O'Toole brought up, and that's the tender early years that are so vital for a foundation. If you talk to any of our teachers, they'll tell you that Mr. Lambert's three major focus areas for those early grades are character, literacy, numeracy. Those are the essentials for human flourishing in the early years. And I'll just say a few quick words about how we approach the mastery of the language, thinking about numbers, and I've already talked about character. We have an explicitly phonemically based curriculum. Words and languages are first heard, then neurolinguistically processed, than either read or written. And we used to do this really well, but we've gotten into whole language instruction and all these derivatives that have turned out pretty poor students over the years. I was at an educational choice event in Boise a number of years ago, and they were interviewing people from industry, and a bunch of people got up on stage to say what they wanted to have high school graduates be capable of doing. But I'll never forget the HR lady from St. Luke's Medical System. She gets up there, there's a room full of educators, over 1,000 people. And the first words out of her mouth were these: please send us graduates that can read and write. You could have heard a pin drop in that massive banquet hall. Well, we certainly focus on those skills. If you think about the English language, I've been using 42 phonemes to communicate. We all have. Those are sounds. And we use 26 symbols to capture those 42 sounds. So immediately we have a problem because we have way too many sounds for the number of symbols. Wouldn't it be great if we had one-to-one symbol to sound relationship? But we don't. And so that means that some letters have multiple sounds, and sometimes multiple letters have a sound. For example, the homophone 8 and 8. Dr. O'Toole, you started just to point this out. You got me on a tangent. 8 and 8, as in I have 8 apples, or I ate an apple. The students will tell you that Mr. Lambert's favorite phonogram is a 4-letter A, which is EIGH. But if I get in front of a group of first graders and I say, students, we're going to spell the word 8, as in I have 8 apples in my bowl, I want you to use a 4-letter A. They're going to know exactly how to spell that. Anyway, we have 72 phonograms that represent those 26 symbols and 42 phonemes. And if we teach students that code, here's the miraculous thing. They will know 95% of the words in the English language, and we have over 1 million words.
Recording in progress. Oh,
Principal Lambert, you were just accidentally muted somehow. We just missed the last sentence.
If we can somehow neurolinguistically teach them that code, they never have a sight word to memorize. And that's really powerful. And so by the time our first graders get done with first grade, they know that code. And so you can see them take off. And we teach grammar, and we teach everything about the language that gives them mastery by the time they get to 6th grade, so that by the time they get into our upper school curriculum, they can get into everything else that is part of our body of knowledge. But without language mastery, you will go nowhere. And you can say the same thing about mathematics. It was Plato that once said, if you want to become a philosopher, first study to become a mathematician, because mathematics is the language of reasoning. I teach 7th and 8th grade students that have huge educational gaps, 2+ years of educational gaps. I teach them mathematics. And wouldn't you know, the biggest challenge we have in our class is not how to remember to divide fractions, but it is how to talk about fractions and how to use the language. So numeracy is also really important. And if we can focus on literacy, numeracy, and character, those 3 things in the early years, then we're laying the foundation by the time they get to 6th grade for this amazing and rich curriculum that is available for them at the high school, upper school, and high school levels of K-12 schools. Anyway, I'll stop. I feel really passionate about this, and I need to be respectful of other people's time.
That was great. Thank you for your very thorough answer. Senator Thayn, is there anything that you would like to add to that question? I know you have some homeschoolers in your family. Is there any specific curriculum that you would recommend to parents?
Well, actually, and I put in the chat box that's one of the things that people are asking me about, what curriculum could be used in the innovative classroom. I don't have a great answer. I should be writing down some of these, but I do have a son in Chalice who is 4 kids in elementary school. He sends them to school 2 days a week and he homeschools them 2 days a week. And because he doesn't want his kids to get behind. So he uses the good and the beautiful, I believe, for a lot of what he does.
Thank you. And I know that Dr. O'Toole sent a link to some Hillsdale resources for K-12 that we will add back into the box for everyone to see before we end this webinar, just so everyone, make sure everyone saw that. So Senator Thayn, this question is again for you. So there currently are some barriers to starting an innovation classroom. So for example, school board could take, up to a year to approve a classroom. I know there's many difficult political decisions that have to be made when a bill goes through the legislature. How can this program be reformed for the future to give parents just more agency over their child's education? And are there other policy options that you think legislators should be pursuing in the upcoming session to empower families?
Thanks for the question, Anna. One of the things that parents need to recognize is they've got a lot of power. When I went to the superintendent, the principal of the high school, and the curriculum director as the chairman of the state board or chairman of the Senate Education Committee and told them what we're thinking about doing, they about threw me out of the room, at least figuratively. If it wouldn't have been for this bill to at least open the door, then I don't think they would have even considered it. But because the bill was there and it gave parents a voice, they are considering this option. Now, what we need before we can really refine the bill further and maybe make it so it's not optional for school boards is to have more parents become interested. Then you ask about, so it's really, there's power in the hands of parents, but one of the signs of an elitist domination model, I call it, is where all the power has been accumulated, centralized, is we become passive as citizens. So we have to shake off our passivity and realize parents, we have the ability to do things. So shake off that passivity, have more parents get involved. And like Mr. Lambert said, doesn't take a majority, it just takes 10, 20, 30%, and we'll make some significant changes. But I do have a proposal for next year that I call it the Student Empowerment and Accountability Bill. And what it does is that our current funding system pays for attendance. And because it pays for attendance, we have a lot of, people are, kids are attending, but learning isn't necessarily taking place. So what the bill is going to do is it allows students who complete their assignments, are engaged in their education, to negotiate with the teacher and the school on some things that they might like to do with that if they have some extra time. And the school would get funded based upon enrollment, meaning they'd get full funding because the student's engaged and doing his work. Students that aren't engaged would have to sit there in school full time until they make some learning goals and they start getting engaged in their education. Because the biggest stress for teachers, and I've been doing some substitute teaching recently in the school district, and I was a teacher for several years, is when students don't want to be there. I think in Treasure Valley Classical Academy, that's not an issue. Most students want to be there. But for a teacher to deal with very many students that don't want to be there creates a lot of classroom management issues. So for their sake, we need to give them another tool to encourage more students to have learning goals, to turn in their assignments, to get engaged. And so when they start having these goals, then the system needs to say, what can we do to help you as a student be successful? Right now, we're just trying to manage some of these kids that have no desire to be there. And I'm talking 6th graders, so I've been subbing for a lot. So that's one thing it does, but it empowers the students and the parents and the teachers to start innovating and individualizing an education for the kids. So I don't know if you wanted that long of an answer, but there you go.
Thank you. That was a very thorough answer. We appreciate it. Principal Lambert, as a principal in Idaho and understanding our education system very well, particularly our public education system, is there a particular legislative proposal or a certain area of policy that you think would be very beneficial for Idaho's education system for lawmakers to pursue in the upcoming session?
That's a dream question, especially since Senator Thayn is listening. Yes, I would like to have the shackles of teacher certification removed. I am sorry, I'm about to get non-politically correct, but the teacher colleges are not doing a job of producing good teachers. They are doing a great job of producing ideologues. And we don't want ideologues. We want subject matter experts that are kind-hearted and love children. And that's not to say that there aren't subject matter experts that are kind-hearted and love children out there. But when you apply to my school, the teacher certification really doesn't mean very much to me because the teacher colleges just are not doing a great job. So, you know, we all congregate at Hillsdale College in February and fight over Hillsdale grads to get them to our schools because they are well educated and they make terrific teachers. And then we go down to University of Dallas and Baylor's Honors College and try to get them from other places because Hillsdale just can't produce enough of them for the need. It would be the easiest. And then I have to take these bright young men and women and force them through this certification process that is frankly soul-sucking and does nothing for their teaching ability. When I have a terrific partner in Hillsdale that is a pedagogical trainer and ally in helping to shape these teachers. And I teach myself. I'm in classrooms every day, teaching and also mentoring and guiding teachers. So the bottom line is, if we could not have to go through that onerous teacher certification process and have more leeway in choosing our own teachers, it would free up access to teachers. Idaho, believe it or not, is one of the few states that does require it. There are lots of other states with charter laws that do not require teacher certification for teachers coming to charter schools. So if I had a dream, that would be my dream. But I will say this, Senator Thayn was an ally in getting a separate certification pipeline approved for charter school principals. And I think I was the first beneficiary of that. And I'm very grateful for the help that we got from the legislature on that bill.
Just to interject here, Anna, Mr. Lambert, I'm going to visit you tomorrow at 10:30, so we can talk about that issue. It was interesting that a fairly high administrator in the public education system suggested that we stop the department or the College of Education for a couple of years and send all those professors out into the field so they could get some real life experience, because I became a certified teacher and I didn't understand what the whole teachers college was about. It wasn't very helpful. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
All right, well, I'm glad to hear there will be some exciting discussion about that. We know teacher certification is a big barrier to entry, so we would love to see more competition and innovation in that field. So we have time for one more question, and this is going to be directed to Dr. O'Toole and Principal Lambert. So Idaho has no cap on charter schools, but we only have one established Hillsdale charter school in Fruitland, and then we have another one that's requesting approval. And after all the exciting things we've heard tonight, I'm sure I'm not the only one wondering, how can Idaho get more charter schools, and what can parents do to help make that happen? So Dr. O'Toole, I'll let you answer first.
Oh, sorry. I think step number one is visit Treasure Valley, see what's possible. There's a lot of misinformation out there about charter schools, about classical schools. And by visiting a quality one, and Treasure Valley is a really excellent example of what we're accomplishing across the nation. You will see that this education is for everyone. This education is not politicized. This education is not for students of a particular religion or political party. This is an education for human beings, and every citizen of Idaho is a human being. Even the kindergartners are human beings. And I think by just visiting it and seeing what it's really like on the ground, you can cut through a lot of the noise and realize that this is a vibrant place where teachers love to teach, parents love to send their kids, and kids love to learn. So I would visit TVCA, and then if you were interested in bringing something like Treasure Valley to your community, contact us at Hillsdale College. We assist local groups of citizens and founding schools just like that all the time. We have 15 on the way right now across the country, and we'd love to see more.
Thank you. And Principal Lambert, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes. What we provide is the education that is befitting of a free citizen, and how that can come to other communities in Idaho is both relatively simple and really difficult. It's relatively simple in that education is best provided when local people are involved in decision making, as close to parents as possible. So the ideal way is groups of citizens get together where they want an educational choice, and they decide that if it's this kind of educational choice, they approach Hillsdale, you can approach me, and we can walk through the process of what it takes to get a charter school like this open and running. It's also really difficult. This is hard work. You have to solve a great many challenges. Where do you get a building from? How do you do busing? How do you do a school nutrition program? Where do you find all the great teachers? Where do you find a school leader? How do you put together a qualified board? All those kinds of things are legitimate and challenging questions. And if you want to talk about them at a greater length, contact me. My passion is to not just have one school like this in Idaho, but multiple schools like this. There are other people that are equally interested. And just like Dr. O'Toole said, pay us a visit, come and see us. We'd love to give tours of the school. Senator Thayn, we look forward to hosting you tomorrow and taking you into classrooms and chatting about all those things we've been talking about. We have it in our power to do this. Idaho is the kind of state that is open to charter school growth if it's done smartly and done well. We have other partners in this state that are helping us out, really important partners. So it's absolutely possible, but the best way that it's done is bottom up in a true federal kind of way, where local citizens get together, take action, demand a choice, and move forward. If that's you, then I put my email in the chat a minute ago. I'll do it again along with my phone number. Give me a call, contact Hillsdale. We can help you out.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your time tonight. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have left for today, but I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening. Thank you again to Senator Thayn, Dr. O'Toole, Principal Lambert for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us and to give such great advice to parents in Idaho. Thank you again to all of our participants for joining, and we will be posting this video on our Facebook page and on Rumble, I believe, and then we will be emailing a copy to everyone that signed up for this event. So you'll all be able to rewatch and take more notes and learn if you so choose to. Thank you again for your time, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening.